U.S. officials are traveling to Russia today, but the three recent cyber attacks will not be on the docket. That will not be something that's discussed. Instead, John Kerry, the special presidential envoy for climate, will meet with Russian officials to discuss, quote, enhancing global climate ambition, whatever that means. Joining us now for more on that is the former chief of staff of the National Security Council and former CIA analyst Fred Fleitz. Fred, good morning. I read this, and I'm not quite sure what it's going to mean. I think the cyber attacks, the average for a gallon of gas is right around $3.21 a gallon nationwide right now. It was $1 less a year ago. That would be my big question for anybody from Russia right now. But apparently, John Kerry wants to talk about the climate.
Global climate ambition. I don't know what that means either. Let's talk about more serious issues. This is the first time that a Biden official visited Russia and China, and it was John Kerry. I just think that's stunning. The Secretary of State, who would be discussing a wide range of issues, nuclear disarmament, what's going on in Ukraine, cyber attacks, those are taking a back seat to an issue the Russians don't care about. And I think it really undermines the credibility and seriousness of Joe Biden's foreign policy even more. This is a really bad the optics of this are really bad. I think the Biden administration should rethink their foreign policy priorities.
Fred, are you surprised we haven't retaliated for these cyber attacks yet? Joe Biden met with Vladimir Putin in Geneva, Switzerland a couple weeks ago, and he laid out 16 entities that he did not want attacked. A week and a half later, a Russian-backed group is hacking hundreds of U.S. companies, and we haven't heard anything from the Biden administration about a possible response. What do you make of that?
Well, I think the reason is because the Biden administration's priorities are backwards. Climate is a higher priority. They want to prepare Russia for a summit this fall on climate in Scotland, I think, and they're reluctant to pick a fight with the Russians on other issues. They also need Russia's help on the nuclear deal with Iran. They're trying to get the nuclear deal back on the tracks. And I just think they're looking for reasons not to go after the cyber attack, which is why Biden was reluctant to say that the Russian government was behind it.
John Kerry, of course, former Secretary of State, talked about working with Russia back in April. Take a listen.
Nothing that we are doing, nothing that President Biden wants us to do is based on trust or blind trust. We are going to require accountability, transparency, and make certain that people have to live up to the pledges that they make.
Fred, what do you make of that, specifically when he mentioned accountability? How can a former Secretary of State, imagine if this were Mike Pompeo, also a former Secretary of State, meeting with Russian officials, how could these recent cyber attacks not be something that was discussed?
Well, I mean, first of all, we have to make it clear that whether the Russian government is responsible for these attacks or tolerating them, they're responsible for the attacks. They're taking place on Russian soil. But I go back to the point I made earlier. Why is the Secretary of State not the first person going to Russia? Why is it someone who is a member of the National Security Council staff, who only has a very narrow number of issues he focuses on? Why is he the first one to go to Moscow to meet the Russian foreign minister? This is really bizarre.
President Trump was at CPAC. He spoke for an hour and a half last night in Dallas, Texas, and he talked about the U.S. troop withdrawal in Afghanistan. Take a listen.
He's leaving behind billions and billions of dollars of equipment. I told these generals, I want every nail brought back home. I want the tanks brought back home. I want it all brought back home. And instead, the Taliban is now parading around with our weapons that Joe Biden allowed them to capture. It's a disgrace. But with all of that being said, we should get out. 21 years is enough.
Fred, U.S. troops left Bagram Airfield in the middle of the night last weekend without informing the base commanders. We mentioned this last week, it was like an Irish exit, really odd optics, and we left behind literally hundreds of military vehicles for the Taliban to then, I mean, if they take over the airbase, those will be theirs.
The withdrawal was a disaster. It was disorderly. There was no advance notice. We were going to have to leave a lot of equipment behind.
Right.
Bear in mind, we've been bringing equipment into Afghanistan for 20 years. It was going to be hard to get most of it out in just a few months, but we could have gotten more of it out. There could have been some type of organized transition. We could have given this equipment to the to the Afghan government rather than leaving it out in the open for the Taliban to take. I think we had to pull out of Afghanistan, but this is not the way to do it.
I don't know. Fred, I'm all about, and I hear what you're saying, I'm all about optics, though, and I just think it's going to be really bizarre to see members of the Taliban driving around in a U.S. Army Humvee in Kabul in a couple of months, if that does happen. I hope it doesn't, but that's a possibility because many Humvees, Suburbans, armored vehicles were left right there at the airfield, although the U.S. said they took the keys with them, so they'll never be able to start them without the keys. Fred, good having you back on. A lot to talk about. We always cover a lot. Thank you.
It's good to be here.
All right.